Stay tuned in the language of your preference.
请大家把手提电话及响闹装置关上，同时请留意大会场地实施的各项感染防控措施。在整个开幕典礼及主题演讲环节，大会提供了英语跟普通话的即时传译服务，网上出席人士可以选择所需要的语言。
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise to welcome our officiating guests.
请各位起立，欢迎主礼嘉宾。
Please remain standing as we play our national anthem.
请肃立，奏国歌。
Please be seated.
大家请就坐。
Once again, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the opening ceremony of the 2021 Hospital Authority Convention. I'm Dr. Stanley from Castle Peak Hospital. It is my pleasure to be one of the masters of ceremonies of this convention.
早上好，各位来宾、女士们、先生们，欢迎出席2021年医院管理局研讨大会的开幕典礼。我是邓永莹，是屯门医院的院务经理，非常荣幸能够担任这个研讨大会的司仪。
Without further ado, may I call upon Mr. Henry Fan, Chairman of the Hospital Authority, to deliver the welcome address. Mr. Fan, please.
现在请医院管理局主席范鸿林先生致欢迎词。
Chief Executive, Professor Chen, distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pleasure to welcome all of you to this HA Convention 2021. As you know, last year we had to cancel the convention due to the pandemic. This year, we are gratified that with the successful implementation by the government of effective anti-pandemic strategies, the fourth wave is now under control, and we are able to proceed as planned. This year, for the first time, we have decided to hold this convention in a hybrid mode, namely physical presence and online presence. Now, I wish to thank Minister Ma, Minister of the National Health Commission, for delivering us a pre-recorded congratulatory message. And my heartfelt thanks to Mrs. Lam and Professor Chen, who have graced us with their physical presence here today. Thank you very much. Last year, amid the COVID-19 pandemic hitting the globe, including Hong Kong, we had a difficult time fighting the pandemic. And as the last line of defense, medical defense for Hong Kong, HA was able to hold the fort with the support of our dedicated team. And I wish to express my heartfelt gratitude to all the professional health care takers for their profound dedication in fighting this pandemic battle. And I'm glad that the situation is so far so good. also deeply grateful to both the central government and the SAR government for their staunch support, without which it would have been mission impossible for HA. The facility, the treatment facility at the airport, as well as the temporary hospital, which has now been named the North Lantau Hospital Hong Kong Infection Control Center, have enabled us to concentrate our hardware and software in dedicated spaces to not affect as much as possible our normal services. Without these facilities, we do not believe HA could have held the fort as firmly as we did. So we are very thankful to both the central government and the SAR government for their relentless efforts in assisting us. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the SAR government for their continuing support of the hospital authority. For the pandemic control, government has given HA a total of over 8 billion Hong Kong dollars. And in addition, despite the budget deficit occurring, government has still decided to increase HA's annual funding for this year by 4.7% to over 80 billion Hong Kong dollars. We are very grateful that government has done so, and we can assure government and the public that all our funds will be used prudently, fruitfully, and in strict adherence to corporate governance rules and regulations. The theme this year for HA convention is sustainability. HA has its 30th anniversary this year. We started in 1990. And in general, HA is so successful that demand constantly outstrips supply. And the situation is getting worse as we face an aging and increasing population. It also gets more challenging as public expectation of HA services continues to raise. And above all, it is worrying for us that our younger generation, younger in the sense of younger than me, those who are in their 45 to 60 have become more frequent users of our services as they incur chronic diseases. And therefore, we believe that the future of HA lies in our finding solutions to address this issue of sustainability of our public healthcare system. Now, the essence of sustainability, as one can imagine, is to balance demand and supply. So in our case, we would have to reduce demand as we increase supply. Now, we have formed a task force group under the board, and I'm very grateful to all the board members who contributed to this important issue. The task group has come up with numerous recommendations as to how to address the issue of sustainability, starting with reducing demand. And the fundamental key issue here is the development of primary care services. Now, I'm gratified that the government has actually taken initiatives. This matter of primary care services has been the subject of more than once in the Chief Executive's policy addresses. And I know the government has taken forward the initiatives. There will be more rollout of, for instance, district health centers in the coming years. And at HA, we pledge we will fully collaborate with government's initiatives to take primary care services forward. In addition, HA would be doing our best to try to change our service models for more efficiency. For instance, we would have more ambulatory care daily services. We will certainly use more smart initiatives, including telemedicine, AI, etc., etc. Now, on the supply side, what we would do is to make use of government's 2 10-year hospital development plans to build more hospitals and increase our beds. At the same time, we would also be doing our best to retain our staff, reduce attrition rate, and in this regard, again, the recent government decision to legislate for more Hong Kong permanent residents, doctors to be admitted to Hong Kong is welcoming news for us. Now, there are many other initiatives which Dr. Tony Goh, in his keynote speech later, would bring to your attention. You know, between Dr. Goh and myself, we have a very nice division of labor. I do the talking, he does the real work. Lastly, this convention will be filled with speeches, talks from leaders in the industry all over the world, local and overseas. And I'm confident that all of you who participate will have a rewarding experience. So enjoy the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fan.
谢谢范主席。
May I now call upon the Honorable Mrs. Carrie Lam, Chief Executive of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, to deliver her special address.
现在恭请香港特别行政区行政长官林郑月娥女士致辞。
Henry, Tony, distinguished guests, healthcare professionals, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this year's Hospital Authority Convention. For the very first time, this year's HA Convention is being held both in person and online. But that should not lessen the significance of this important gathering of health experts and professionals, held annually since 1993, in championing for quality care for the people of Hong Kong. Indeed, the fact that we could host an in-person convention when many places around the world are still battling against the pandemic is a heartening confirmation of the strength and resilience of Hong Kong's medical and health system. This year's HA convention takes place as the authority celebrates its 30th anniversary. If not because of COVID-19 and the government's anti-epidemic measures in respect of border controls and social distancing, I'm pretty sure that HA would have organized a celebratory get-together for all those who have helped to shape HA in the past 3 decades, to have an occasion for reminiscence and renewing friendship. Had there been such an occasion, I would certainly attend as the Chief Executive of the Hong Kong SAR, but more affectionately as a former HA board member and a close partner of HA in my other official capacities. It is because of that association and affection, many of my colleagues will tell you that I am very passionate about how government should devise its policies and plan Hong Kong's medical services with an aim to safeguard the health of the population. While there is always room for service improvements, let me make it clear that our healthcare system has actually served us very well amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Both the public health and hospital systems have effectively stood up to this unprecedented and daunting test over the past 15 months. Hong Kong is one of the few places in the world in which every COVID-19 patient is being properly cared for in terms of isolation and treatment in public hospitals and related facilities. The HA and healthcare workers have worked throughout the pandemic with courage and dedication. For that, you have my heartfelt gratitude and deepest appreciation. And I'm confident that with your continuing commitment, Hong Kong will overcome this pandemic. The question, of course, is when that will be. To a considerable extent, it depends on the people of Hong Kong on how quickly we can get the great majority to take advantage of our free, community-wide vaccination program. I urge everyone to do so sooner rather than later in order to protect yourself and your family, and if we are to return to normality. In the 15 months since the COVID-19 outbreak, like many places in the world, I believe we have learned a great deal about and weaknesses of our healthcare system, and in particular, the direction we must take, the policies and programs we must implement if we are to respond effectively and efficiently to a future pandemic or other major healthcare challenges. So allow me to share a few of my thoughts on this occasion. Let me begin with President Xi Jinping's keynote address at the opening ceremony last month of the Boao Forum for Asia's annual conference. In his speech, President Xi called on all countries to defeat the pandemic, and I quote, through solidarity and cooperation. This is, in my view, first and foremost in defeating the virus. Disease, after all, does not distinguish among races and peoples. It has no regard for a country's level of development. It observes no boundaries. A virus needs no passport to travel from one place to another. In this 21st century of economic globalization and unfettered flow of people, we cannot build a wall against disease. The answer is therefore concerted efforts and cooperation between governments at the global and regional level and across different sectors at the local level. In our case, since the first infected case was confirmed in late January 2020, the Hong Kong SAR government set up a high-level steering committee chaired personally by the Chief Executive, which comprises all principal officials, as well as the Director of Health and the HA's Chief Executive. An expert advisory panel consisting of 4 public health and medical experts was appointed from the same day to provide advice and guidance to our work. Other advisory panels were subsequently convened to help the government to authorize vaccines for emergency use and to examine post-vaccination matters. Cooperation also comes from various universities in research and investigations, from the industrial sector in production of PPEs, from a technology sector in coming up with innovative solutions on medical surveillance and contact tracing, from the elderly care sector in adopting infection control measures in their institutions, from the property management sector in supporting our compulsory testing and enforcement operations. It is therefore very disappointing that contrary to this joint effort approach, some healthcare staff have chosen to politicize anti-epidemic measures and engage in spreading inaccurate information. My second takeaway is the importance of research and development and its application. In this respect, scientists all over the world have not failed us. Within a much compressed timetable for trials and evaluations, we now have vaccines authorized for emergency use, which have been hailed as the only way to get humankind out of this unprecedented public health crisis. Given my government's commitment to innovation and technology, I have attached importance to supporting R&D almost from day one. By now, $170 million has been allocated from the Food and Health Bureau's Health and Medical Research Fund, and another $350 million set aside by the Research Grants Council of the University Grants Committee to fund COVID-19 related research. Some of these have already borne fruit. For example, rapid nucleic acid tests for COVID-19 developed by the University of Hong Kong research team are now being used by public healthcare laboratories in more than 70 countries and regions. The University of Hong Kong also picked up a gold medal with congratulations at the International Exhibition of Inventions of Geneva for developing the world's first nasal spray vaccine for COVID-19, which is now undergoing clinical trial. An innovative sewage testing tool for COVID-19 has helped us to monitor the spread of the virus in individual buildings. Based on these sewage findings, the government has conducted compulsory testing of about 130 buildings, identifying more than 50 confirmed cases. What is remarkable is that a significant number of the cases were actually found before there were even a confirmed case in those buildings. HA has also adopted technology usefully to provide care during the pandemic. There's the mobile application HA Go, which has piloted telehealth consultation for psychiatric services using video conferencing technology, while health staff have made rehabilitation services exercise videos available to patients through HA Go. And I know that 5G is now being explored at Zheng Guanlou Hospital for real-time expert consultations, and down the road, even the viewing of complex medical procedures. My third observation is that with more and more Hong Kong people moving to work and live in the Greater Bay Area mainland cities, instead of requiring these HA patients to come back to HA hospitals to receive service, which has been impeded by the boundary control measures, innovative arrangements have to be found. Supported by the HA, the Food and Health Bureau has appointed an agent, in this case, the University of Hong Kong Shenzhen Hospital, to take up consultations for HA patients in Guangdong. Up to the middle of April, the hospital has already conducted some 12,500 consultations involving 7,700 HA patients. This experience will provide useful reference for facilitating people flow in the Greater Bay Area development in future. Finally, we have to recognize that COVID-19 pandemic hit us at the time when Hong Kong was still haunted by anti-central government and anti-Hong Kong SAR government chaos and violence since June 2019. One painful experience we have had in the fight against COVID-19 is how destructive misinformation could be. Despite that public safety is at stake, a small group of people have repeatedly sought to undermine our anti-epidemic efforts, including distorting the purpose of the universal community testing program last September, or slandering mainland vaccines. To counter that, my government has been highly transparent about our anti-epidemic initiatives and programs, and will continue to promote objective understanding through various means, with a view to restoring and building trust in our community. It is through such trust and professionalism that we will overcome this challenge together. After we have dealt with COVID-19, we still have much to do to strengthen our public health system to tackle the long-term challenges. In recent years, the government has increased investment into this system to serve the people. For example, a special funding arrangement for the HA has been put in place to reflect the pressure arising from aging of the population. As a result, recurrent subvention to the authority has increased by almost 30% over the past 3 years, amounting to 80.7 billion in 2021-2022. In addition, through two successive commitments, a total of $500 billion has been set aside for upgrading and expanding our medical and health facilities. This includes two 10-year hospital development plans, which together will provide an additional 15,000 beds, representing an increase of about 50% on top of the existing 29,000 beds in the authority and related hospital facilities. With enhanced hardware, we need to have sufficient manpower. It is no secret that Hong Kong has been facing serious shortage of doctors, especially specialty doctors, and such shortage has resulted in tremendous workload for our existing doctors, especially those in public hospitals, and in long waiting time for patients. Despite an increase in medical student intake into the two local medical schools, we have to accept that this alone will not be able to solve the problem, which is imminent. That is why I announced earlier this year that we will put in place an alternative pathway for the admission of non-locally trained doctors who are Hong Kong permanent residents to serve in public institutions. The bill to amend the medical registration ordinance for this purpose will be ready later this month, and I appeal to our medical fraternity for their support. Ladies and gentlemen, this year marks the 30th anniversary of the Hospital Authority. I know I speak for the people of Hong Kong when I say that the authority and its some 84,000 staff have served Hong Kong people well. I take this opportunity to congratulate the Hospital Authority on its continuing achievements and sincerely hope that through solidarity, cooperation, innovation, technology, communication, and the building of trust, we can all look forward to maintaining high-quality healthcare for our people. I wish you all a very rewarding HA convention and a year blessed with good health and happiness. Thank you very much.
谢谢特首。今天我们也非常荣幸得到国家卫生健康委员会马晓伟主任透过视频的方式为大会致贺词。
Thank you, Chief Executive. Next, we are honored to have a pre-recorded congratulatory message from Mr. Ma Xiaowei, Minister of the National Health Commission of the People's Republic of China.
驻英的香港特区行政长官林郑月娥女士，食物及卫生局陈肇始教授，医院管理局董事局主席范鸿龄先生，行政总裁高拔升医生，女士们、先生们，来宾朋友们，早上好！很高兴以视频方式出席2021年香港医院管理局研讨大会，与各位新老朋友相聚。我谨代表国家卫生健康委对大会召开表示热烈祝贺，向出席会议的各位代表及香港医管局全体同仁致以诚挚的问候。面对突如其来的新冠肺炎疫情，习近平主席亲自指挥、亲自部署，坚持把人民生命安全和身体健康放在第一位，领导全党全国各族人民打响了疫情防控的人民战争、总体战、阻击战，疫情防控取得重大战略成果。疫情伊始，果断实施严格防控措施，不断完善防控和救治方案，举全国之力支援湖北武汉，最大程度提高治愈率，降低病亡率， 坚决打赢武汉和湖北保卫战，取得决定性成果。疫情防控转入常态化后，及时调整防控策略，实施分区、分级、差异化精准防控，先后发布了73类防控指南和55个技术方案，坚持人物同防，加强重点地区、重点场所、重点人群和关键环节防控，有效处置局部地区发生的聚集性疫情，将疫情对人民正常生产生活和经济社会发展的影响降到最低。新冠病毒疫苗上市使用以后，突出重点地区和重点人群，稳妥有序组织疫苗接种工作，确保接种安全，已累计接种超过2亿剂次。中央政府始终高度关注香港疫情，高度关心关怀香港人民健康福祉。在香港特区政府领导下，香港社会凝群聚力，应对4波疫情，采取外防输入、内防扩散防控策略，严格各项防控措施，努力切断社区传播链，并积极推进疫苗接种。医管局全体医务人员持续奋战在抗疫一线，做出重要贡献。在中央统筹部署下，我委积极协助特区政府提高核酸检测能力和救治能力，多次组织内地有实战经验的防控救治专家与香港同仁开展技术交流。香港具有成熟的公共卫生体系、优质医疗资源和高水平的卫生人才队伍。在特区政府指导下，经过不懈努力，目前香港每日报告新增病例回归低位，期待香港早日实现清零目的，恢复与内地的正常人员往来。2021年是我国现代化建设进程中具有特殊重要的一年，我委将立足新发展阶段，全面推进健康中国建设，努力全方位、全周期保障人民健康。一是毫不松懈抓好疫情防控常态化工作，坚持常态化防控和局部应急处置有机结合，认真落实外防输入、内防反弹各项举措，严防出现聚集性疫情和散发病例传播扩散，加快推进新冠病毒疫苗接种工作，不断提高疫苗接种率。二是深化医药卫生体制改革，加强疾控体系基础设施和能力建设，加大构建强大的公共卫生体系，推进公立医院高质量发展，坚持中西医并重，实施中医药振兴发展重大工程。三是积极应对人口老龄化，聚集一老一小，增加托幼服务供给，推动老年健康服务体系建设和医养结合发展。四是做好健康扶贫成果与乡村振兴有效衔接，持续推进脱贫地区乡村医疗卫生服务体系建设，提升县域医疗服务能力，加强传统医生和乡村医生队伍建设，着力解决制约基层发展的人才问题。五是持续推进健康中国行动，牢固树立大卫生大健康理念，深入开展爱国卫生运动，大力倡导文明健康、绿色环保生活方式，加快推进以治病为中心向以人民健康为中心转变。女士们、先生们，今年适逢中国共产党建党100周年，具有重大政治意义和历史意义。在卫生健康领域，我委将一如既往加强与香港业界交流合作，发挥香港独特优势，促进两地卫生健康事业融合发展。一是继续共同做好疫情防控， 支持两地卫生行政部门及业内专家加强疫情信息通报、技术交流和经验分享，慎重如实，全力做好外防输入、内防反弹各项工作，有力有序推进新冠病毒疫苗接种工作，巩固来之不易的疫情防控成果。二是深化粤港澳大湾区医疗卫生合作，支持粤港澳大湾区指定医疗机构先行先试境外药品、医疗器械，鼓励香港医师到内地执业办医，在港深两地跨境就医、医院评价标准、培养国际化专科医生等方面持续改革创新。三是携手构建人类卫生健康共同体，支持香港充分发挥地缘、语言、人脉等优势，积极同各国各地区开展卫生健康交流合作，积极参与共建健康丝绸之路和全球卫生治理。来宾朋友们，本次大会为我们提供宝贵的学习交流机会，我也将与香港医务界同仁同心协力，不断增进人民健康福祉。最后，预祝本次大会取得圆满成功，谢谢大家。
谢谢马主任。
As mentioned in our Hospital Authority Chairman's welcome address, the Hospital Authority strives to achieve a balance in service supply and demand with a view to reach out for a sustainable future in public healthcare services. To provide an overview of our strategies, we have produced a video on sustainability. Let's take a look.
刚才医管局范主席在欢迎词提到，医管局致力希望能够平衡服务供应及需求，让公营医疗服务可以持续发展。以下的短片为大家介绍一下医管局持续发展方向的理念。
醫院管理局自1990年成立以嚟，一直致力提供優質嘅公營醫療服務，獲得世界各地嘅高度評價。雖然醫管局嘅服務量喺30年間有大幅增長，但係仍然面對住供不應求嘅問題。要服務供求達至平衡，係一直以嚟嘅重大挑戰。而我哋預示到將會有不同嘅因素，令到考驗變得更大。根據人口預測，未來嘅香港人口數目會持續上升。65歲或以上長者人數由現時超過137萬，至2036年會大幅增加至超過240萬。喺目前，長者係公立醫院服務嘅主要使用者。當未來嘅長者人數增加，公立醫院所承擔嘅壓力亦隨之而上升。慢性疾病年輕化亦同樣令人憂慮，將會令日後醫療系統負荷更重。基建設施方面，醫管局自成立以嚟，先後開設咗超過10間新醫院，並且進行各類型工程去應付服務需求增長，但仍然面對服務空間不足嘅限制。另外，醫管局亦一直面對住醫護人手嚴重短缺嘅考驗。長遠堅穩咁守護香港市民嘅健康，醫管局喺2019年成立持續發展專責小組，檢視挑戰，制定策略方向，希望做到供求平衡。要達至可持續發展嘅目標，可以點做呢？醫管局將會致力透過轉變服務模式，節上游、放下流、中間分流，做好公營醫療服務嘅供求管理。節上游，減少病人對專科門診以及住院服務嘅需求。部分病情較穩定嘅慢性疾病病人，其實無需轉介到專科門診，可以由家庭醫生跟進。喺未來，醫管局會透過加強基層醫療服務，減少病人對專科服務嘅需求。另外，醫管局會繼續投放資源喺日間醫療服務，讓部分相對簡單嘅醫療程序喺日間醫療中心進行， 除咗可以減少不必要嘅住院，亦可以讓醫護人員集中照顧病情較嚴重嘅病人。喺應對慢性疾病年輕化方面，未來會推動更多個人化治療模式，及早協助病人參與管理自己嘅健康，減少入院。放下來，加強醫社合作，擴大社區治療服務，為病情穩定嘅長期住院病人提供社區支援，由醫護人員透過家訪等方式診症，無需住院，騰出病床俾更有需要嘅病人。中間分流，由真正接受服務嘅病人分流到醫院外接受治療。醫管局會開展更多公私營協作計劃，分流部分合適病人到私營服務提供者接受診治，縮短輪候時間。此外，增加護士診所，由專科護士為病情穩定但需長期覆診嘅病人檢查以及評估。除咗做好供求管理，醫管局會持續提升硬件以及基建設施。公立醫院會引入同利用新科技，發展智慧型醫院，為病人提供更優質嘅服務，例如智慧機械人、全面智慧化運作病房、遙距診症，以科技代替人手，減輕醫護人手負擔。至於醫院發展計劃，係實行整個可持續發展計劃當中密不可分嘅一部分。醫管局將會繼續積極興建新醫院，重建或擴建現有設施，以應付未來嘅服務需求。最後，亦係最重要嘅一環，就係人才管理。對於維持香港公營醫療體系同服務質素係非常關鍵。醫管局除咗會繼續全力招聘全職同兼職醫護人員，亦會推出更多措施，例如加強或優化福利、改善晉升階梯、設立有系統嘅培訓機制，以挽留各職系員工，減低流失率。除咗已提及嘅各項方案，醫管局不斷從各方面着手，發展及落實更多措施，以達至可持續發展嘅目標。喺過去30年，感激沿途有大家一同邁步向前。醫管局嘅可持續發展，實在有賴政府、醫管局同事、病人、社區各界人士嘅支持。未來，我哋需要大家繼續攜手，結伴同行，共創可持續未來。
A very brilliant video indeed. We shall now continue with the rest of the opening ceremony. May I now call upon Dr. Tony Ko, Chief Executive of the Hospital Authority, to deliver his keynote address. Dr. Ko, please.
各位来宾，开幕典礼继续进行。现在请医院管理局行政总裁高拔升医生致辞。
Chief Executive, Professor Chen, Mr. Fan, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my greatest pleasure this morning to welcome you all to the 2021 Hospital Authority Convention. Last year, we reluctantly had to cancel this year's convention because of the COVID-19 pandemic. This year, thanks to technology advancement as well as the dedicated effort of the support team, I'm very glad that we are able to launch this flagship program each year to have our HA convention in a hybrid model for the very first time. Despite the limitation in the cross-border travel, this year we are very glad to see that we have over 50 eminent speakers, experts, both locally and from overseas, to join us today and also tomorrow to share on the various aspects of healthcare. I would also like to thank our mainland and Macau counterparts who are joining us online this morning and share with us our different thoughts. My heartfelt gratitude in particular goes to Minister Ma of the National Health Commission for his thoughtful arrangement in delivering his congratulation message to us through the video which we saw just then. This is the first X-ray convention that I joined after assuming the role of the Chief Executive of HA in 2019. I'm excited to see that the convention provides a very important opportunities for us to share our medical knowledge as well as new ideas so that we can deliver better services to our patients and to the community. This year, HA is celebrating its 30th anniversary. Confucius once said, a person should be able to establish oneself at the age of 30. In Chinese, we say 30 了. I think it is indeed an opportune time for us to reflect on our previous experience and to plan our future ahead. Today is a special occasion. I would like to quickly travel with you through the time, to look back at our past, to take a snapshot at our present, and take a glimpse of what we are going to have in the future. As we stroll down the memory lane, I'm sure many of us can recall the days in the 1970s, 80s, and probably in the 90s, when the public hospital system is under tremendous pressure. I still recall the days in those times where there are very high service demands, a lot of expectation from community. Actually, it's at this backdrop that the Hospital Authority was established in 1990, and in the subsequent years, in 1991, take over the management of all the public hospitals. Our chairman, Mr. Henry Fan, just then pointed out to you of the importance of maintaining a balance between the supply and the demand. And from this graph, you can see that the demand has been escalating significantly in the past, and it will continue to further escalate in the future. You can see that our A&D attendance has increased by more than 150%. And likewise, we have a more than double of outpatient attendance in the last 30 years. What's more, adding to this is not only the numbers, but also the complexity of the disease. Actually, in the last 30 years, we will know that with the advancement in technology and treatment, the management and treatment is very different today when compared to 30 years ago. We're talking about stroke as an example. In the early 1990s, when we saw an acute stroke patient, it's relatively simple when we think about it in those days. The mainstay of treatment at that time is to give an aspirin. We arranged some rehabilitations, but unfortunately, many patients end up with significant disability at that time, despite being treated in our tertiary hospital centers. But nowadays, in the last 30 years, there has been tremendous advancement in the technology. Today, if a patient with acute stroke goes to the hospital, they will receive ultra-urgent imaging, high technology imaging where you can see the vessels, the infarcts very clearly. They will be attended by a multidisciplinary expert team. We will perform reperfusion therapy, including intraarterial thrombectomies. And of course, we have dedicated multidisciplinary team to provide rehabilitation at the very beginning of the hospitalization. And with all this, we are able to provide even better patient outcome. Over the past 3 decades, HA holds steadfast to its mission of providing high-quality, patient-centered healthcare services to our patients. We have put in place many important initiatives, both in terms of hardware as well as software, as you will see in the coming slides. You may not believe this. I still sometimes dream about the days when I was a junior doctor working in the hot, humid hospitals, and of course there was no air conditioning in those days, and we have to dig through the various piles of papers and records to find the lab results, so that some of the professors who are sitting here this morning will ask me for the lab result and I can't find it. Unfortunately, we are not always successful to find the lab results in those days. Of course, things have been changing. We have been moving towards the development of smart care with smart hospital projects, and we will continue to do so in the coming years. And of course, I wish to take this opportunity to thank our predecessors who dared to dream big. We now have our CMS system, we now have frameless radiology. All these are very important and great initiatives. I'm really glad to see that this pioneer spirit continues in HA and continues to grow, and there are many more innovative ideas that are budding. And many of our dreams today, I believe, will become reality very soon. Throughout the history of HA, we have been facing profound impacts of escalating service demand. We have a growing and aging population, and also, as Mr. Fan mentioned, an increasing number of people with chronic disease. And more worrying is not only from the aging population, but also from younger ones like ourselves, which are actually middle-aged people. If you look at the latest figures from the government projections, we will notice that the Hong Kong population will continue to increase, and in particular, our elderly population will increase from 18% to 30% of our population. Elderly people generally require more healthcare services, and they attributed to about 50% of our A&E and patient days, as well as 1/3 of our general bed utilization rates and outpatient services. The escalating service demand, as I mentioned just then, is even more complicated with the increasing prevalence of chronic disease. Many of the middle-aged citizens will be going to have more and more chronic diseases. According to the latest projections, you can see that the number of patients with chronic disease will increase from 2 million to 3 million really soon. And if you look at this slide, you will notice that some of the disease, in the old days, we won't call them chronic diseases. For example, cancers of colorectal, liver, lungs. Usually, in the old days, we always say that the life expectancy is very short. But now with the advances in therapy and treatments, they all become chronic diseases. Some patients actually can come back 10 years later and they're still managing well. So this, on the one hand, is a very encouraging result, but on the other hand, we also significantly increase the demand to our services. The good news is, through the various measures we've done throughout the years, we have been able to decrease the utilization per capita of elderly inpatients and day patients by around 12% in the last 10 years. However, coming with this good news, we also noticed there has been a 21% increase in people in the middle age that demands our service per capita at around the same time. That's why we foresee that the balance will tilt towards this increasing demand of chronic disease among the middle age that is going to cause a big impact to our public healthcare services. Apart from the sharp service demand which I mentioned just then, of course, the other very important challenge or huge challenge that actually has been facing is, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic since last year. Following the outbreak of the pandemic last year and the activation of the emergency response level in all hospitals, we reluctantly had to suspend or postpone quite a number of non-emergency services so that we can reserve both the manpower and the facilities to take care of the various waves of COVID-19 patients. Thanks to the support from the government and a dedicated team in fighting the virus, despite we have been hit by different waves of COVID-19, now I'm very happy to tell you our service have by now largely resumed to our usual levels. Nonetheless, the numbers of previous service suspensions has inevitably created additional burdens to our already long waiting time. To a certain extent, if you look back at the history of HA, we have the experience of dealing with different infection outbreak threats in the past. From the early 1990s, we have the bird flu, and of course, afterwards, the human swine flu, and most of us, actually all of us, will remember the SARS in 2003. After the SARS experience, we have enforced closer collaborations with various colleagues, in particular, colleagues from the Department of Health, the Center of Health Protection, and various other sectors, including private hospital sectors. And also, we have also further enhanced actually infection control facilities and our emergency response systems. Actually, with this foundation, when we're faced with the COVID-19 pandemic this time, and very importantly, with the special thanks to the strong support from the central government as well as the Hong Kong SAR government, we have, in response to the COVID-19 challenges, established the community treatment facilities at the Asia World Expo, which you can see in the slide today. In addition to that, we have also opened now the North Lantau Hong Kong Infection Control Centers earlier this year. With the concerted efforts of our colleagues and the support from colleagues from various government departments and various sectors, we are able to operate these additional facilities within a very short time. Actually, if I recall correctly, it's actually around within a month that we are able to start operation to different extents. And with these facilities with us, I can tell you that we are much more confident that we are able to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic effectively. And also, no doubt that these facilities has greatly strengthened our capability to fight the COVID-19 virus. The strong support of the government has always been the most reliable background in the public healthcare services. I would like again to take this opportunity to express our sincere gratitude to the government for according high priority to healthcare services in both its funding and policy initiatives. From this slide, you can see that we have the 2 10-year hospital redevelopment plan, special funding support for the COVID-19 pandemic, which is more than 8 billion Hong Kong dollars, the triennial progression funding arrangement, and despite the economic uncertainty, the government has increased its subvention to the public healthcare services to over $82 billion this year. Looking ahead, the rapid growing demand will quickly outstrip supplies, as mentioned by our chairman, and all the facts and the figures that I showed you just then. So we foresee that we are going to face a great sustainability challenge. To that, I'm truly grateful that under the guidance of the HA Board, a special task force was established in December 2019, which was led by the chairman himself and the strong support from all the board members that we critically examine the major sustainability challenge and to formulate a number of strategic directions for HA to take forward in the coming years. From the video just then, I believe you already have a glance of the sustainability of all the works and directions that we are going to take forward. All this will be a mammoth task, and we know that implementation of all these measures to maintain a sustainable is not going to be easy. But we know that if we change nothing, nothing will change. And experience tells us that just by doing more of the same is not going to work. Here, I would like to share with you some of the major initiatives and the key priority areas that the task group has looked into. Of course, from the video just then, you'll notice that if I talk about all the things, then I'll be the single person who talk in the 2 days conference. So what I'll do in the coming 10 minutes or so, I'll mainly focus on 3 main areas, namely smart care, smart hospitals, and a smart and happy workforce. About smart care, the essence of sustainability is to balance demand and supply. And to address this, the HA will adopt a 3-pronged approach. We narrow the upstream, collaborate the downstream, and also diverting through the midstream. And one of the key we can do this is by the provision of smart care to patients so that we can keep them healthy in the community and also reduce the need for hospitalization. How we actually do that? There are 4 major strategies that we have developed. The first one is the adoption of data-driven care, which helps us to be able to develop personalized care for our patients. And of course, at the same time, we need to promote ambulatory care as well as enhance community-based services. So how we can adopt data-driven care? One of the strengths of HA is that on disease prevention, and with the CMS, our clinical management system that we have developed, I think, more than 2 decades. In the CMS system, we have a myriad of clinical data that give us a great opportunity to leverage on big data analytics so that we are able to provide both predictive models as well as proactive care for our patients. One of the success we have in the past is the development of the Hospital Admission Risk Reduction Program for Elderly, or HARPI in abbreviation. It was developed about 10 years ago, and at that time we are able to greatly reduce the demand for hospital care with this prediction model and also the subsequent intervention. Riding on this success, we are now building various predictive risk model and intervention, two of which I will share with you today. The first one is the E-frailty index to identify high-risk patients. From this slide, I know that this slide looks like something we make up from a computer, but it's not true. Actually, this E-frailty index is already in place. And what we are doing is we use this index to stratify elderly patients so that we can provide appropriate care for them with appropriate intervention, specific care plans in specific care settings. From the slide, it is supposed to be computer screens. I hope you can show that. And from the computer screens, in future, you will be able to see the various status of the patients. We have selected some of the clinical characteristics, some of the socio-economic factors to make up this E-frailty index. Actually, all these data are already in our systems, and some of the data will be entered in the day-to-day operation of our wards, so that the clinicians will be able to devise individualized care plan for the patients when they look at the patients individually. Talking about personalized care, it is very important that the risk prediction model can tell us who are the people at risk and stratify them individually so that we can tailor personalized treatment for them. For example, in the lower part of the triangle, you can see that for the majority of relatively well elderly, we only need to provide them with supported self-care. For the one in the middle, who have some chronic disease, but on the whole still stable, chronic disease management is the key. As we have said many, many times before, prevention is always better than cure. And for the relatively small number of high-risk complex cases, of course, they will need more specific case management. The same applies to the younger patient group. Here, I share with you a program we have been done again for more than 10 years on diabetes mellitus management, on DM. We know that many both elderly people and younger middle-aged people have diabetes mellitus. Many of us remember this risk assessment and management program, the RAM program, where we have been doing for a number of years. We now actually each year, we provide complication screening assessment for more than 200,000 patients every year. For them, we do a risk assessment, provide complication identifications, and targeted interventions if they deteriorate, or if there are signs that they are not doing so good. Very convincing data have shown that these patients, they are able to achieve better disease control in terms of both glycemic control, blood pressure control, lipid control, and obviously better clinical outcomes eventually. Based on this success, we are now developing an even better model. With a data-driven care, we are now building with the various inputs you can see on the slides about the demographics, comorbidities, selected clinical data, both laboratory and clinical measurements. Through a machine learning model, we are able to have very precise prediction probabilities of the various clinical outcomes, like mortality, heart failure, chronic kidney disease, etc. And of course, we hope that through all this intervention, we will be able to provide early intervention, personalized care, and very importantly, patient empowerment. Because we know that for chronic disease, the best way is for the patient to take care of themselves. We know that DM patients in particular, they are worried about all the complications, the heart disease, and for kidney disease, the ultimate nightmare of end-stage renal failure and dialysis. We hope that through all this intervention, we are able to prevent or to delay this from happening. To collaborate downstream, I want to talk about ambulatory care. In the coming years, we will try to reorientate HA service so that we become less reliant on inpatient care. For those interventions that can be performed in ambulatory care settings, we try to divert them by concentrating some of the facilities. For example, in this case, you will see we plan to concentrate the diagnostic imaging services in the ambulatory setting. In support with technology with teleradiology, off-site reporting, cross-cluster management, we were able to diverse or decongest the inpatient need. To divert midstream, Empowerment of patients with self-care and keeping them healthy in the community is another key. For instance, we are now using the mobile apps, the HA Go, in various settings to help patients to record the self-monitoring parameters. This includes relatively simple parameters like the BMI, blood glucose, blood pressure, etc., to the more complicated ones on even data on peritoneal dialysis can be recorded in the various modules of the HA Go applications. Patient education information can be prescribed in the forms of e-pamphlets, videos, soundtracks, etc., to provide individualized intervention to the patients. We will continue again to strengthen medical-social collaboration because this is the way we can minimize the reliance on hospitalizations. By having better and strengthening the collaboration with community partners, we hope that more patients will be able to stay in the community where we think the care will be better, closer to their home, and also better prevention and primary health care. For example, we have been delivering rehabilitation services and programs in district health centers. With more district health centers opening in the coming 1 or 2 years, we hope that we can, on this area, to have even greater collaboration. And also, we have piloted in some OH home at the end-of-life care programs for our elderly patients. In a nutshell, our future plan for smart care is to further adopt the risk prediction model and incorporate these models into the HA Go applications so that the patients can be more self-empowered. They can take care of the health care themselves. And also, we are able to deliver more personalized self-care modules and treatment for them. While at the same time, we want to provide more ambulatory care so that more care can be done in the community or ambulatory settings, and at the same time, enhance community-based kind of services with our various partners in the community. Because with all this together, we hope they will be able to reduce the need for hospitalization. The next area I want to talk about is about smart hospitals. Facing the rigorous demands and also the cost, and as Mr. Fan has mentioned, the shortage of healthcare manpower, we need to move towards a direction and also sought for digital innovations and digital solutions. This slide shows you the various products, all the modules, all the digital healthcare capabilities within HA. We have a world-class clinical management systems that provide massive coverage of all the hospitals and all the outpatient clinics, and also the clinical models you can see cover the entire range of clinical care process. There are many abbreviations in the slides which I don't expect you to be able to understand. Actually, to be very honest, I can't understand all the abbreviations myself, and I doubt even the IT people may not be able to do so. The reason is because if you look at the yellow circles, they show you that our system has been built throughout the years to serve different purposes. They can help the patients, they can help the frontline clinical staffs, the clinically supporting staffs, the nursing staff, allied health staff, hospital operation, the infection control, other corporate functions, even procurement, HR issues, all the things are put together. And also importantly, I want to draw your attention to the right side of the screens. We also, with the support of the government, has been working with other institutions outside HA. We also develop service for the EHRSS, which are used by many private medical practitioners. The CIMS tool is for the Department of Health. The DHC is, of course, for the district health centers, various PPP and various programs, and even private hospitals and laboratory systems. I would say the beauty in this is, with the team doing all these things together, we will be able to have better interlink and transfer of information so that the flow, because the patients will not limit themselves to only one sector. They will go from private to public to DH to various sectors, so that with this system in place, we have been able to provide better linkage. And if you look at the slides, the blue ones are already there. So the vast majority of the system is already in place. And throughout the years, we are building even stronger system, and we will continue to do so. Actually, with all this foundation and leverage on this solid development, we will be able to take our digital health to an even higher level, as you can see our dreams in these slides. In essence, the smart hospital strategies we aim to, of course, enhance our digital capabilities. It helps us to be able to develop new models of care, new models of healthcare deliveries. Because, as I said, we know if we're just doing more of the same, it's not going to work. And through this process, we hope we will be able to improve, very importantly, patient experience, our staff experience, so that we're able to engage in better care, of course, provide better support to our both clinical and non-clinical staff. To develop smart hospital strategies involve a very complicated and wide-ranging transformation process, which changes not only service delivery, but also workflows in many key areas. So we need to engage a lot of staff to have a lot of participation amongst our colleagues. And to take this forward, we will start off by having 3 designated hospitals, namely Tin Shui Wai hospitals, Zhong An hospitals, as well as Queen Elizabeth hospitals as our pilot hospitals. What we will do is we will develop and deploy a comprehensive suite of smart hospital products at the early stage, so that in these hospitals, despite the products are still at a relatively early stage, we'll try them out. And hopefully, we will be able to further enhance the models, the various programs, so that we can further fine-tune it and deploy in another hospital as soon as it is ready. And actually, it is a continuum, and we have been doing that for quite some time now. I'm sure you will hear a lot more about our smart hospital and smart initiatives in the coming 2 days. Here, I would like to share with you just a few examples. From this slide, you can see from the clinical front, we already have a relatively mature and adopted an artificial intelligence AI model to read the chest X-ray. With the AI model, we are able to read many, many more X-rays when compared to using the human eyes and experience. We have also, as I mentioned, developed various mobile solutions, various telecare, including teleconsultations, telerehabilitations, teledrug, telemonitoring, among many other things. And as mentioned just then, the one-stop patient mobile apps, the HA Go, provide easy electronic access so that patients can use their smartphone to access various HA services, receive important health information, and of course, receive personalized basis information for himself or herself. On the hospital operation levels, we have also established the first hospital command center in Queen Elizabeth hospitals. With this setting, we have brought together key hospital operation information within the same location in the same room, so that colleagues in the hospital can, in this single location, monitoring and review and manage various functions within the hospitals, like the bed capacity, the people waiting in the A&E, the people that are waiting for discharge, going back to OH home, the transport arrangement, etc., etc. This is very important first step we have taken, and hopefully we will be able to roll this out in other hospitals in the longer term. We have also tried various robotics, from the more back-end things like cleaning robotics, delivery robotics, and the more front-end like the ward assistant in the ward that we have been tried in Tin Shui Wai hospitals. As we learn from these pilots and refine the smart hospital products, I trust we will be able to seamlessly incorporate them all together so that we are able to further improve our patient and staff experience. This slide provides with you a smart hospital blueprint. I know there are many small words, but I can assure that the vast majority of them are already in place and has been in operation for quite a number of years. Of course, like the CMS, we have different versions and we are building it from strength to strength. And hopefully, in future, it serves our patients and our staff better. In order to enable us to move towards the direction of sustainability, not only with this smart care, smart hospital, and of course, more importantly, a smart and happy workforce. In the HA, we now have over 80,000 staff, so human capital is always our greatest asset. And that is, of course, one of the emphasis and one of the focus when the task force for sustainability is looking into how we are going to take forward. We are developing digital workplace for our colleagues, which is more personalized, easy to access, and with connected IT capabilities. The development focus will be mainly on paperless, personalized, and peer-friendly. For the colleagues in the room and also in the Zoom and online, most of you, I believe, have already tried the HR app, which I understand has been used by over 80,000 staff within HA. Now, with the HR apps, we have been able to perform quite a number of usual day-to-day functions, from relatively simple tasks like applying, approving lists for procurement, applications, etc. And of course, with the COVID-19 coming, we have developed new initiatives to help us to deal with COVID-19. With the HA chatbot, our colleagues is now able to use not only receive matters like FAQ on COVID-related matters, but also our colleagues can book vaccination appointment through the HA chatbot. They can make vaccination records on HA chatbot. And most recently, starting from this week onwards, our colleagues is able to record their COVID-19 antigen test results through the HA chatbot as well. It is with all these convenience IT capabilities that help us to be able, for colleagues, to perform functions much easier and in a more efficient manner. Apart from the initiative I mentioned just then, we also target to explore more innovative measures to transform our whole HR strategies, in particular, to better meet the needs and expectations of the new generations. Traditionally, in the old days, when we were first graduate, I recall most of the healthcare professionals, they do things in a very focused way. All they want to do is perform highly specialized, highly task-orientated, one-track mind type of career development. But nowadays, in order to optimize agility, flexibility, and versatility, we are going to explore new career options for our colleagues, in particular the younger generations. We know that they want to be empowered with training so that they can develop multiple talents and also multiple roles in the workplace. Staff well-being and effective communications are always important in building a happy workforce. We will continue to enhance effective communication with staff by strengthening staff engagement through the various well-being programs. They include, among other things, we will have different strategies in the coming year to build a harmonious workforce environment and reinforce a caring, trust, and respect culture within HA. HA has been facing huge challenges in the past years, and now we have the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic. While we know that we may not have the magical solutions to solve all these challenges ahead, we have strong resolve to provide best care for our patients. With the strong support from the government and the guidance of the HA board, as well as a dedicated workforce and close partnerships with the various stakeholders, I trust that we can together afford to provide a sustainable healthcare services to help people to live a healthier and happier life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ko. May we now have the officiating party on stage for a photo. The Honorable Mrs. Carrie Lam, Professor Sophia Chan, Mr. Henry Fan, please.
谢谢高医生。现在主礼嘉宾会在台上一起拍照。